We're
keep in
all
mind,
in this
Jim
together.
Jones is a perfect example of this because Jim Jones, the whole cult following and everything was actually established in Indiana in 1955 with him. But he was actually a socialist who inserted himself into the civil rights movement and then built his following off of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, this is appealing to people at the time. Like, you want this communal sense, so that, the sense of community.
Yeah.
You want this sense of righteousness, which is where the civil rights movement rightly came in. But he played on both of those to set himself up as the supreme leader, basically.
Who was this?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones, okay.
And that's, he wanted to create a utopia, and in the mid-70s, that's when he moved his followers all to Guyana, and on November 18th of 1978, led his followers in a mass suicide, which took the lives of 909 people, a third of which were children.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a mass suicide, but it was a murder-suicide, too. A lot of those people had to be forced their dreams.
Yes, they did. And, at the end of that, we all know, he took his own life, but not even through cyanide, the way that he made his followers do it. He wanted it quick. Cyanide is not quick.
Yeah.
It is extraordinarily painful.
Oh, and he didn't use Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid. So it wasn't...
Yeah, not the brand Kool-Aid and everything, but it was essentially like a generic brand of that.
Yeah, so he couldn't even have the good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the makers of Flavor Aid was like, man...
Well, okay,
look at when we already had it hard enough with Kool-Aid, and now this.
Son of them.
Okay, look at the hit that Nike took after Heaven's Gate too.
It didn't last long.
No, it didn't. But still, they did take a hit at that point.
Did you know they had to?
Because that was the only thing in the photos and the videos that was visible because they covered themselves up.
However, they actually didn't take much of a hit. They had to stop making those shoes, and people were throwing a fit wanting to buy them.
See, that's insane to me. To me, that's almost another. Okay, well, maybe I can't say that's insane.
You can say it, but you're about to change your perspective of it.
I say, no, because I'm that weird person, that kind of, and I hate to call it memorabilia, but that's exactly what it is by definition. There's a part of me that still would say, okay, yeah, I kind of want it. I would love to have one of Gacy's paintings.
Yeah, and there's that. That's not uncommon, I don't think.
I mean,
it's not normal, I don't think, either.
Well, I mean, you want one of Jeffrey Dahmer's urns. So, yeah.
I mean...
yeah. But, yeah, it's definitely that same kind of mindset for those type of sneakers and things like that. But, yeah, I wouldn't say Nike actually took a hit, But,
I mean, I don't want... I would never say it would bother me to have actually a set of the shoes that were on one of the victims. That would bother the crap. I would not be able to do that.
I wouldn't want actually on the. But now, if they had a pair of shoes and one of those purple scarves or whatever,
I don't think I would want anything
that was like hanging in the closet because Jim didn't show up the day of the arrival of the spaceship.
Well,
the Hale-Bopp comet.
That was Applewhite. Not Jim.
I was just using the name Jim as the guy who didn't show up, babe. So
what was his? I don't even remember his first name.
They went by weird, he was D and she was T or something.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to cover all of these cults. Jonestown, we're going to do a deep dive. Heaven's Gate, we're going to do a deep dive. That's why this is the start of a series.
Yeah.
Tonight is just us basically talking about how these cults basically get established.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of looking at mainly the leaders, their psychology of them, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that of the victims that wind up falling for. Because a lot of people, they like to say, well, it's Stockholm Syndrome in a way. And I think that Stockholm Syndrome has become this kind of coverall, this
right.
term for a bunch of these kind of mental issues or whatever. Stockholm syndrome, at its core, when it was originally coined, even then it was flawed. And it's, by the way, and we can do a whole show on that. I would love to do that.
I think we're going to do a show on that for sure.
But a lot of people say, well, it's a form of Stockholm syndrome. And it is because
a form of it,
because the definition of Stockholm syndrome has become so broad and fluid. So it's not really fair, because when you say Stockholm syndrome, to me, it's like it's the kidnapped person who falls for the kidnapper, that kind of thing.
Well, it's not even that they fall for them. It's just that they get so attached to them that as a survival instinct, it's not quite an affection for them, but they kind of start seeing them as their own family, as somebody who will protect them and shelter them and all this kind of other stuff. Like it is a survival instinct, I think.
It could be argued a form of affection, but it's more of it could be a dependency as well. It's kind of as well.
Like I said, more of a survival thing.
But even again, when we do the show on Stockholm syndrome, I think y'all may be interested in my view on that. But
that's going to be a very deep dive.
But that's kind of the framework that we'll talk about the cult members and victims, because they would kind of be following that umbrella of what people would associate with Stockholm syndrome, I think.
I mean, we will cover in specific cults in like the separate parts that follow this. The ones that have tried to get away and have tried to get other members to like kind of see the light, basically, and say, hey, I'm trying to save you. We need to get out of this. And they do, but those other people stay sometimes. I mean, sometimes this is even like mothers and their children.
There's another huge cult that's active too that we can look into, Scientology.
Yeah, that would be a good one to do.
I mean, it falls. Some people say it's a type of a religion, but it's not.
No, that's absolutely a cult. 100%. I mean, if you actually look into the core, like, of the Scientology, like, origins, that's 100% a cult.
Wasn't it Deborah Messing that come out of it? They done that whole show about her?
No. I forget her name now, if you hadn't said it. Deborah Messing's the redhead from Will and Grace.
So,
raging liberal.
Anyways.
So, what I'm getting from you guys is you're saying that you don't accept Lord Xenu as your Lord and Savior.
No. Absolutely not. But, I mean, it is amazing, the dynamic here between the leader and the follower is very, very interesting to me, mainly because of the leaders. Because you have to be this charismatic, dynamic person to be able to at least speak to people in a way that they're not going to say you're insane.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be able to kind of couch this in terms that they can relate to, that they can understand.
Well, I saw one where they were talking about they would approach someone in broad terms, like, don't you feel alone? Don't you feel
right?
And
very
those are
generic.
things, but those are things that every human with emotions has felt at some point. So they may speak to a room full of 1,000 people, and they may only get 10 of them to buy into it, but that's the start.
Okay, and you take those 10 people out of that 1,000, and I'm trying to. This is going to be kind of a stream of thought type of deal. Think of a bowl of fruit. One fruit in that bowl goes rotten, and it is going to speed up the rotting process in all of the rest of the fruit.
To the ones that's touching it,
Yeah. And then that's going to spread to the ones that are touching that one. So that's how this works.
So those 10 people, what you're getting at, those 10 people, when they leave there and they go back to their normal lives, they're going to interact with other people that have the same kind of feelings,
insecurities.
So they're liable to bring in at least one other person, and then that's where your growth starts.
Yeah. This, it's kind of the ultimate pyramid scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it does have the one person at the very top.
At least for Jim Jones, I know part of the way he got people to join him was he was very big in the civil rights movement.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, And what's people don't really know that I didn't know this until I looked up I looked up a documentary on him, and basically he was apparently like the first like interracial adoption person. Like he adopted a black kid, and that he was the first one to do that in his state.
Yeah, I think so. He started out, what was it, California? I think it was.
I don't know.
No, Indiana.
Yeah, I think he was
started
Indiana.
in, but I think he did move around before they ended up settling, quote unquote, Jonestown in Guyana. So
Yeah. I know he was extremely poor when he was born. I mean, lived in a shack with no power, no water.
I think that was kind of where the socialism, communism aspect of his, what would you even call it, his preaching, I guess, came from, where everybody worked together and helped one another and everything, which on a very small scale, that does work. I mean,
it was also where his greed began to grow, because once he started getting out of that hole that he was in, he wanted more.
Yeah.
He didn't ever want to go backwards.
I mean, and that's exactly how that works. I mean, if you have started out poor and then you suddenly get money, it's more of a comfort thing, I think, because you realize you're not ever going to need for anything or want for anything again. So you want more and more and more of that, just to kind of build that up, that sense of security.
Yeah.
But I think he also played on that in his followers.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they were also like low income people
to start with.
Yeah. But I mean, no one joins a cult knowing that it's a cult. It's essentially a recruitment process, like you mentioned. Like this person who has listened to this speech and this sermon almost.
I don't know. I think the people that willingly go to the Ohio State University know it's a cult, but they still go.
He has a thing about Ohio, so. But no, like you don't knowingly join a cult, like thinking this is a cult. I know it's a cult. I'm joining anyway.
Yeah.
You don't do that. This is typically a fairly slow procedural thing. Like it's going to take steps. Like you're going to hear that first quote unquote sermon, and you're going to think, oh, well, they had some good ideas. Yeah. I'll come back again and hear them speak twice.
That sermon is going to speak to you and answer questions and alleviate fears that you had, and then you're going to realize, hey, I want to hear that again, and
you're going to keep going back to that person, and then you're going to start telling your friends, your family, hey, you're feeling these same things that I'm feeling. This guy is speaking to that.
Yeah.
Or even girl. There are going to be some female-led cults that we're going to touch on later, but they actually tend to be way more ruthless, I think, than the guys, at least as far as daily practices.
Laura, if you think about it, as far as women go, would you consider how a bunch of these men sort of attach to women in the on the internet for certain websites and turn into their kind of I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know what the terms of service are about what I can say or whatever, but you know what I'm getting at?
I think on Spaces, and at least with us, like we're brutally honest no matter what. So speak your mind for sure.
All right. So. Well, I'm not here to shame sex workers or anything like that, but the leadership that women wind up having over men of that nature that are really into that. These men spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just giving women money for good morning messages and pictures of their feet or whatever. And
and again, that goes back into the follower mentality. Like these people are feeling like insecure or lonely or afraid in some kind of way, and this person offers them a solution to that.
I agree with that.
Did you hear about the whole like a disproportionate number of subscribers to OnlyFans are married men?
Yeah, no, I have heard that. I mean, and it would almost make sense. I think at least probably half of the men in the U.S., at least over the age of 18, you could probably say at least half of them are married.
I want to know where he was headed with the sex worker.
Yeah, well, you're talking about cults, right? I mean, it just leads it forms this group of people that are just pointlessly loyal to this person who doesn't really, they're not really leading them anywhere. They're not really leading them towards the end result of a goal like, Waco or anything like that. But they just go. They just stay loyal to that person. And that person, like you said, Laura, knows that. They know exactly what to do to keep them loyal. They know exactly what to do to keep them
Yeah.
attached to them. And those men, their dependence grows on the whole thing. Their behavior changes on the whole thing. It's their behavior, I mean, you guys feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but the behaviors can lead into the same behavior that addicts have because it is an addiction in some ways. And
Yeah, it
and
is.
it just mirrors cult-like behavior in a lot of ways. Not so much that an OnlyFans worker is like, hey, I can't wait to make people kill themselves in a tent for me or whatever, but
Right.
they do understand that the power over their whatever it is they use for leadership, whether it's
Yeah,
sex work
at
or
a very
whatever.
base level, I think it's extraordinarily similar. And yes, you did touch on that. Daniel is actually like he's been listening and everything, and he wants to.
What it is, they're giving these guys something that they want. It's something that they are out there
Yeah.
seeking, and I know he mentioned that a lot of them being married men too. It's they're getting something for
That is lacking.
that is lacking somewhere that or they
There
perceive
it
to
is.
be
Yeah, that's
lacking.
exactly what I was
Right.
about to say. What they perceive to be like. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no,
No,
no,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good.
and it's easier because I all I gotta do is do this. She'll tell me or show me exactly what I want, and then I can go about my way, and that does become addictive feeling.
Well,
Right.
Uh,
That releases the endorphins, all
yeah,
the the
you
happy chemicals in
all
the
I got
brain.
all I got to do is light this cigarette and puff on it, and I'm gonna get to feeling good. The same thing they're doing. All I got to do is
Take this drink and.
send this $10 over to this woman, and she's gonna show me her feed or whatever it happens to be.
uh,
They're getting something. They're seeking something, and then they're getting it immediately,
Instant
exactly what they
gratification.
want from that person with very little effort. Like Laura was saying just then, it's that instant gratification part, and
They
that
have to put forth no effort into achieving this
and I think that's
themselves.
how these to fall into a cult in the traditional cult sense. It starts that way.
Yeah.
It's very simple to get. That bait hanging on that hook is real easy to reach it there and bite.
That's why to me cults are so scary because like I said, everybody has their chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that bait on that hook.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person has this. We all think no, we would never fall
Yeah.
for a Jim Jones or a Yahweh Ben Yahweh. We would never do that. We would never fall for a David Koresh.
yeah,
There is a possibility that yes, if they offer the right thing,
At the right time.
you could absolutely fall into
Mm-hmm.
this.
yeah. And, I mean, obviously, when we're talking about, sex cults are a thing, and they've been very popular even since antiquity. So,
What was that? Was it Nexium?
uh,
The weird one that went around there for a few years?
Not familiar.
yeah,
What's Nexium?
It wasn't even spelled Nexium. It was like NX. I don't know. It was weird. I'll have to
Is
drop a
this a
link or
drug or is
something
this the
later
name of
for
a
it.
cult?
could be.
No, Nexium I think actually did fall into the
Nexium is a
Oh,
drug. It's not actually Nexium. It's the cult
no,
name, but we'll
not
yeah, I
find
got you.
it.
Got you.
Nexium. I'm not talking like the reflux medicine or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
that's right. This is drug or cult. So get back on point. Let him finish his point, and then we'll
Yeah,
go from
yeah.
there.
Yes, but yes, Nexium was a sex cult.
Got
That's
it.
the one that
All
came
right.
to mind, so that's why I mentioned it.
Got it.
Well, would you say, like, groupies can be sort of like followers, sort of cult a personality of someone?
I'd like to
Because
weigh into that when you get a chance. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
because, like, for example, you have all these high-paying athletes, these famous people, like NBA players will constantly say, like, they'll go and they'll have this big tour bus and they travel around. They stop in any city and they can get 20 or 30 girls to come into their
Right.
bus. So, I mean, that could be like sort of a cult of personalities because they're basically
And okay, you just said it. I would say that is cult like.
yeah.
Yes, that is. I mean, they are absolutely putting this person on a pedestal. This person is trying. They think can give them what they are seeking, and yeah, very very cult
Yeah,
like.
I'll weigh into that a little bit too. I've spent some time as a professional
Groupie.
touring musician. No, a musician. Uh, but I haven't been so lucky, man. But the I that particular thing is a little different. I think that you're partially correct, but there's an added dynamic to that in that there are also quote unquote groupies that do the same thing that will hoard themselves around an athlete or whatever, but they are actually victimizing the athlete or the musician or what the performer or whatever it is. They're hey, I come around all your shows, look how I dress, why don't you buy me a Jaguar? There it goes both ways with that.
I can, yeah, I can actually kind of see this because I think that the other end of the groupie aspect is also somebody who is seeking
Now,
something, and this other person, this groupie, is saying, "Hey, I can give this to
yeah.
you." So they're taking advantage of that. They're both taking advantage of each other.
Oh
Yeah,
I
yeah.
it
think
that
a
that's
hundred
exactly right,
percent.
Laura. That's kind of what I was getting at. It's a little symbiotic in that way. But I think to
Yeah,
his point, I forget it. Veer Volt Viltrumite. Uh,
we just call him
Brass.
Brass.
All right. Uh,
Yeah,
what he's saying is that there are girls that are like, oh my god, I love whoever Noah Kahan or whatever it is, and they'll do
Yeah,
anything to get around him, and they've got him all plastered in their rooms, and they all the memorabilia, and they'll do anything to get a hair for the the
right.
shrine or
Yeah,
whatever. But
definitely very cult
yes,
like. But
yes,
again, these people, like the object of the obsession there is not actually. I don't. This is why I don't think that it falls into the actual like definition of a cult, because this person is not
selling them anything.
actively trying to get these people to
No,
follow
I
them.
think they have the
Maybe.
potential to
yeah,
though.
agreed.
Like for instance, like if Taylor Swift decided she wanted to have a cult, she'd have the biggest cult in the world.
Yeah,
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 it's ridiculous.
yeah,
especially with younger like women that seem to love her for some reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, the favorite person that we all know that was known for talking about groupies is Trump.
Yeah, and it's ironically very like nobody understands that. He's talking about when you're rich and famous, these types of women let you do these things, and he's exactly right.
Yeah, that's what. The only thing I see is the face, is what it's saying here. That's kind of what he's talking about. There being a big,
Yeah,
they're both using each
yeah,
other to
yeah,
see.
exactly. I mean, these women are seeking Trump because he's rich and famous and everything, and they're letting him do whatever the fuck he wants to them.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's he obviously he was not talking about actual sexual assault. He was literally saying when you're rich and famous, they let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
which is
He ain't
He's
saying
a
he did it.
hundred
He's
percent.
saying that it
Yeah, he's
happened.
100% talking about groupies and the lengths that they are willing to basically debase themselves
yeah,
Look,
for
yeah.
these men.
you got a good example right now that's all over the internet. Look at Bill Belichick's wife or girlfriend right now.
Oh God, I saw those pictures. Yeah,
I mean, that's the most that's the most high profile one right now that you can go look at.
that yeah, we call them gold diggers.
um, I mean, is since he's on the news more lately, do you think Elon Musk is starting a cult with a bunch of women to have his babies?
I don't
I
know,
have
but
not
that's
heard that.
actually a really good question because I think Elon Musk actually could be a very, very charismatic cult leader. And I mean, look at the following. The
He has.
there's
I mean,
extremes on left and right. I mean, I can pick out Democrats and everything that do this too, but especially right now, just because it's topical
yeah,
with Elon Musk and everything. There are people that I've seen people online talking about, this is our savior. This is the person that's gonna, save America and everything. They're setting him
Mm-hmm.
up as almost
We're
a
not using it.
messiah.
Sorry.
Like
Weird.
it's kind of insane. Like I'm flabbergasted by these
Yeah,
people.
I think Laura too. from what I can tell, from what I know about y'all, is that naturally we are, if I were to group us together, we are somewhat skeptical of somebody that has a lot of power naturally. Like we want to
Yeah.
go, hey, who are you and who the fuck do you think you are to tell me what I can and can't do? Let me just I want to check your credentials and make sure that everything is hunky dory here. And I think that lets us be a little more objective and stand outside the box and look into that sort of leadership sect and go,
Yeah.
what the hell is going on in here? Uh,
I mean, I think it's actually worth noting that you and I butted heads like extremely when we first met.
sure, sure.
Like, you and I are like diametrically opposed when it comes to like political and social issues.
Some, yeah. I mean, we align on guns quite a bit, but yeah. But the point is, like,
Yeah,
you,
but I mean, for the most part, like on abortion, on Trump and everything, and all that kind of stuff, like you and I are very, very opposed, and we have had very vehement arguments before.
we have. But the thing is, if just to analyze that a little bit, I think it's because you were skeptical of my assertiveness on something that is the opposite of how you feel, and I was skeptical of your assertiveness on something that I felt was the opposite of how I feel, and we naturally were
Right.
never going to align on that, never, like in that moment, like
Yeah.
in the way that it was before. So to me, that plays into how I just don't cave to authority that way, and I don't think you guys do either, because
We definitely
yeah.
don't. I mean, I think I don't know. Yeah, Ordy's still listening. If you see Ordnance Packard in there, he has said it best, and this is like mine and Daniel's stance on the government. Like, we want a government so small that we can drown it in a
Fuck
bathtub.
yes. Fuck
Like,
yes.
that's what we want.
Yes. And the
And
cult, I don't mean to cut you off, Laura. The cult like uh aspects of both sides are just absolutely it's I don't know, it's cringe. I don't know. It's hard to
yeah,
describe to me. At the very my reaction is cringe at the very beginning. It's like, dude, like have y'all
yeah. I mean,
seen
I
this?
spend most of my days when I first log into Twitter. I'm looking at all this because I follow a lot of Democrats. I follow a lot of Republicans.
Uh-huh.
I follow, a ton of people. And I'm sitting here scrolling through my news feed and everything and thinking, all of these people are insane.
Right.
Like, all of this is
So,
batshit.
is there
There you go.
anybody in your anybody? I'd love anybody to weigh in on this. Is there anybody in your life it doesn't matter what the following is, whether it be politics or racing or football or wrestling or music or it doesn't matter. Is there anybody in your life that you would make AI images of them super muscular with their sleeves undone and like ruling over everybody and make it your profile picture? Anybody?
So
Yeah,
I would do it with Daniel.
but I would do
All right, that's
myself.
valid. That's
I would
valid.
do
That's valid.
myself. Does that count?
Yeah, that's
He would be a very benevolent dictator, though. I will give him
Yeah, yeah.
that.
But you get what I'm asking, though. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Seriously though, no, there's not any celebrity or
yeah,
hero
no.
Yeah.
that I would do.
And just if you were to look outside of what's you know from a 30,000 foot view, that's a good indicator. It's like what are y'all? What is this? What is going through your head about your feelings about this person? What's
Yeah,
fueling this like worship, this idolship, this sort of just idolization of this person that will let you
right.
I get people don't even do that with Jesus. Like nobody makes that stuff about Jesus. Like they'll post it.
I mean, no, I've seen some stuff about Jesus, and I'm like, y'all, this is a
There's
little
a
bit
little bit
weird
weird.
even for
Yeah.
me. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Well,
Like,
like
I see it even to the point where you have a celebrity death, and you got people calling in and taking off work for days
yeah.
because they're grieving.
Yeah.
Like,
You
okay,
know,
look, you know how upset I was when Robin Williams committed
Yeah.
suicide. Like,
Valid.
that was a man that was a big part of my childhood and everything.
Yep.
Shaped probably a lot of my sense of humor. Like, very kind of sardonic,
Hmm.
sarcastic type of deal, kind of mocking everything. But at the same time, like, I went about my day. Like, yes, I was very sad that he
Yep.
died. Very sad. Like, it was awful. Like, suicide, depression, all of that is an awful thing. And, that death kind of brought that home. But again, like, all these people who would see something like that and be like, I can't even function today.
Yeah.
because this person that I don't know died.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Totally.
Like, I don't understand that. Like, yes, I can be sad about it. I can understand how horrific it
Stan Lee
is.
was like
I
that for
can
me.
empathize
Like
with
Stan Lee was
this.
that one for me. When Stan Lee Marvel Comics, I
Yeah.
was that was such a bummer, and just connected to my childhood and all that stuff. And I do have like an association with that stranger in that way, but there's no interpersonal relationship whatsoever. None. There's a word.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
is
I
the
mean, even Stephen King, I would say Stephen King, yes, raging lefty and everything. He would probably hate me if he knew I existed.
yeah
But at the same time, like, I've been reading his books since I was 6 years old. This man has shaped my childhood, shaped my imagination, shaped my love for
yeah
horror. When he dies, I'm not going to
that's
be
right.
okay for a while. But at the same time, I'm still going to go on about my life because I did not actually personally know
Yeah.
him.
Uh,
I'm so far different on this.
Yes, yeah,
how
he
so?
is.
There is not one person in this world who is famous or not that I'm not physically connected to, not physically, but emotionally connected to. That's not like family and things like that.
Right.
That will I wouldn't even stutter step if I find out someone died
Y'all don't
like
have
that.
Bear Bryant in a
I don't care
you don't
who
have
they
Bear
are.
Bryant in a
Yeah.
robe hanging on the wall or anything in there.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, I mean, honest to gosh, I can't. There's not one celebrity death that even made me go. Norm Macdonald. I'm like, man, that sucks because
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
funny. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the complete
He
end
Oh,
of
would love
my
that joke, by the way.
grieving.
now, okay, you laugh at that. You laugh at that, but wait till you hear his theory about Norm.
Oh, Norm was a serial killer.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's an episode for you,
But yeah,
Laura. There's one right there. Deep
yeah.
dive.
But there's people in my extended family even that I've not seen in a long time or whatever, and I found out that they've passed away. I may go to the funeral,
I say we'll go because they're family,
but
but
I'm going because of the people that's still
Yeah,
living
there you
there.
go.
You
I
know,
say I've
I'm
been to
not.
some of your family members' funerals, but I never actually met them because they died before I met them.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be rude about it or anything like that. But honestly, I don't have the energy to care enough
Yeah,
I
to
say
to
there's
to
just
to let it
yeah.
affect my life. I have my wife and my daughter and my parents and the close knit parts of my family that I need to worry about. Everybody else, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you enough energy to care.
I say you're not going to spend. Well, I mean, okay, both of us are still mourning like the loss of your little brother,
Yeah,
oh
Adam,
and your
man,
father.
and
oh
my
man.
dad.
yeah.
That's horrible, man.
I mean, very, very suddenly. I mean, his brother was only like a year older than me,
He was
so
29 when he passed away.
29,
yeah,
dude.
and yeah, it was very sudden.
He had an aneurysm.
Yeah, there's a
Had one
lot
of
of
those in my
rumors
family
going
too,
around
man.
that he OD'd or something from the people that are stalking me and just trying to make my life hell.
Would you?
No, I mean, it was a legitimate, like, nobody ever saw it coming. It was just an
Yeah, I had one in
aneurysm.
my
Like,
family too. It's his 20th birthday, and then we're driving home from it. He ran off the
jeez,
road,
Mm,
and there was no blood in the car because he was dead before he ever hit the tree.
yeah.
It
Mm.
jeez.
sucks, brother. I'm sorry to
See,
hear that, man. That sucks a lot. I would be
well,
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
inconsolable if it were my baby brother. That's fucking
Yeah.
terrible.
I,
Terrible.
It was
Oh,
terrible.
it's still like every year, like his birthday
yeah,
comes
dude.
around, the anniversary
Yes.
comes around. Like,
Yes.
it's still very rough, and this
Yeah,
Yes.
happened years ago.
yeah. That's the
But
thing. Is like that's what I was saying. Is like I'm not callous. I mourn people
That's
that
right.
matter to me,
right,
but I'm also not going. Life is too good and important to me for my loved ones for me to give any energy to some actor or singer or
Yeah.
yeah,
celebrity or
To your
you
point too,
know.
Daniel, that adds a lot of stress to you and a lot of baggage for you to carry to have that
right.
emotional bandwidth tied up in people that you've never met. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't
I
mean to,
mean, like I said, we can empathize and
yeah,
everything,
Yeah.
obviously. And like Robin Williams died, and I spent like an entire weekend watching Robin Williams
yeah,
movies. Like,
yeah,
you know, but that was about it. Like, I mean, I watched them with you guys, with you and the Tiny Tyrant. Like, we spent family time together, and we recognized, hey, we're lucky to still have each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a good thing in that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, especially nowadays, this is how alarmingly easy I think it would be for a cult leader really to rise up.
It's and scarily kind of close to being is to happening in a lot of ways. I mean, you guys can objectively look at Trump and go, that is the president of the United States of America, and he makes laws, and I obey
Yeah.
them. But there's some behavior around that is just, I don't even think it's close to any other president I've ever seen, and it's weird.
Listen,
No,
we
I
call
agree.
balls and strikes no
Yeah.
matter what. I mean, we voted for the guy this time around and everything, and I mean that's
hmm
fine. But we are able to say like, "Hey, we don't like when he's doing this," or "Hey, it's a good thing that he's doing this."
He was,
Like, we're very,
yeah,
very objective when it
hmm
comes to that.
exactly.
Laura, don't you know that he's the most conservative person ever?
I always love that Trump's a conservative. Like, where have you been?
Yeah,
Like, no, he's not.
yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, and right now, like you were saying, this day and age with celebrity, number one, I'm
Yeah,
surprised there's not huge
yeah.
cults out there
hmm
right now.
I mean, if we kind of let the definition of cult be more fluid and everything, I bet that yes, like the Swifties
You would,
would be
well,
considered a quote unquote cult.
you have political side. They say
Yeah,
we're a cult. We say
hmm
they're a cult.
right.
Well, us personally, I'm just talking about right and left. And then the Taylor Swifties are cults. You got people that are other celebrity,
Yeah,
cults. Kansas City Chief cults, whatever. I mean, cult gets thrown around a lot.
yeah, but
A
I
lot of
mean,
times it's just fandom,
yeah.
Yeah,
but I
it's
For
can
the
see.
colloquial.
purposes like of this episode and everything, we're talking about like the difference between like due and undue influences.
So,
And again, these are the cult leaders that we're talking about, like the David Koresh, like the even Charles Manson, Jim Jones, Yahweh Ben Yahweh. These are people who are actively trying to prey on other
was
people
Jim Jones the
You
older
know it.
guy
for
with
their
the bald
own
headed
gain.
guy with the glasses?
Which
Was that
which
Jim
one was
Jones?
he?
Who
That
was?
would be Goldway.
No, Jim Jones
No,
had a full set of.
Appleway
Appleway. He
he
had
was a
white hair
weird dude,
though.
man. He
Yeah,
didn't have glasses
Who
though. No, he
who
no,
didn't
am
he
I
have
didn't have
thinking
glasses.
of?
glasses.
It was the older guy, wore a robe, purple robe. It might have been the Suicide Cult
I say
guy.
if we looked him up, we'd probably know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'll look him up real quick. Y'all just go on and make your
Yeah,
yeah.
point. And
but
I'll get his name.
okay, basically, like for the purposes of this episode and everything, the cult leader is going to be a malignant narcissist, and
True, true.
that's not a formal term or diagnosis in the world of psychology at all. Um, it combines the traits of narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, aggression and sadism, and paranoia often.
Yeah, paranoia is a good point
So
too. Like
yeah.
cult leadership by way of fear. Like if you don't follow me, something bad will happen, and it's unavoidable unless
Well,
you.
and look at Jim
Yeah.
Jones too. Like Jim Jones got convinced that the U.S. government was coming to get him, so that's why he moved his people to Guyana. Like,
Well, they were coming after him.
well,
So,
no, that congressman. Hang on, I got his name written down
Hey,
because he
well,
was one of the ones killed at the airfield. Leo Ryan, he was a
mhm.
Democrat from California. They were basically just coming to almost investigate because he came with other journalists, and they were just going to talk to some of the people there and everything and try to get a handle on what was happening at Jonestown.
well,
And then they were all killed not all of them, but most of them were killed right there in that tiny little airstrip because Jim Jones sent his little gunmen after them, the people who were trying to leave Jonestown and the people coming to ask
I just
questions
looked up
about
Jim
it.
Jones. Heaven's Gate is the one I was thinking of. That's him. Yeah,
Okay.
Heaven's Gate,
yeah,
that's
the
Applewhite.
the
Yeah.
older guy. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Marshall
yeah, yeah.
Applewhite. I thought
Okay.
Yep.
that's who he
Yeah.
was talking about. So.
I couldn't remember his first
Yeah.
name, but I have those visions of those videos of him in my head. They
Yeah,
were
when he said
so
the
weird.
old guy and then the purple robe, because they covered the guys with purple.
I
Yeah,
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but again, like malignant narcissism is not actually a formal or psychological term, But narcissistic personality disorder is overwhelmingly what we're dealing with cult leaders. And obviously we know narcissism, the Greek myth, where narcissist falls deeply in love with his own reflection. That's where that term comes from.
Narcissism.
Have you
Narcissist,
guys
yeah.
heard of the Japan subway cult thing? The guy that the Supreme Truth guy.
I'll have
Yeah,
to
I
look
think
that
you
one
guys would
up.
like that when I think he gassed a subway station. Like him and his people went underneath
Okay,
underneath the subway station.
I think I know the actual crime, but the cult thing is not ringing a bell.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that with these cult leaders, they very often, even when they're caught red-handed, and it's like they do seem to have this aura about them that leads to them, even when they're in captivity, to get followers. Which, I mean, look at Manson, for example. He arguably got more followers once he was put in prison than he did when he was
Oh,
actually
he
out there.
was eventually at some point not allowed anymore to respond to fan mail that he got. Like, he could still get his mail, he just was not allowed to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Enrico. It's means supreme truth. It began
Okay.
in
Yeah,
1980s
Shinriko.
and
Look,
went
yeah,
through.
10,000 people
Mm-hmm.
in Japan and 30,000 members worldwide. Many of them in Russia. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
yeah.
But I mean, going back to, these leaders and everything, they have to be able to get people to follow them. And again, a lot of this is it's a combination of different diagnosable
Hmm.
personality disorders. Now, that narcissistic personality disorder, which I've got my DSM right here in front of me, it's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, either in fantasy or behavior, the need for admiration, a lack of empathy. Um, let's see, it says, beginning by early adulthood, present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So we've got the sense of grandiosity. They exaggerate their achievements or talents. They expect to be recognized as superior without actually doing anything to warrant that.
Mm.
They're preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or love. They believe that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people, which means that, like, that's why they look down upon their followers and they view them as expendable because they're not as high power or as special as they are.
Yeah, when they refer to them as sheep, it's not in
It's
the
not a
way that
nice.
Yeah.
Christians do.
Yeah, no.
It's
They need the excessive admiration, the sense of entitlement. Like, all of this is what drives them, especially.
yeah,
But yes, they have to learn again they have to adapt, and they have to be able to reach people like on a deeply personal level in order to get those people to
Yeah.
follow them.
So, in the way that most of us could say about ourselves that we are pretty skeptical of leadership, any authority, and would question just about anybody that would presume to have control over us. How do you guys think somebody that lives in the same world that we do could psychologically fall for this? What do you think it is about those people that make them susceptible to a person that exhibits those traits that you just read on?
It goes back to what I was saying earlier about followers. We have a human need for comfort, for safety, for stability, so we seek out people who offer these things to us.
We also just have that human need to fit in,
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
you
have
need
to be
that sense of
part of
belonging.
to have a big part of something.
Yes, you need that sense of belonging. Like, this is just part of being a human.
And a lot of times
We are social creatures.
when you see like survivors of these cults that got out, you'll see that they mention that they was looking, that they always felt out of place, that they never fit in anywhere until they met this group of like-minded individuals that accepted them as they were in the beginning.
Right. As long as, like, you fell in line with what they accepted
Oh.
and what they believed to be true,
And
you were accepted too. So it gives you that sense of community.
And then when you're searching for something like that and you realize you're getting a taste of it, you're more susceptible to doing more things to continue to stay there. You don't want to
To
rock the
keep it,
boat.
yeah.
You want to stay because you don't want to
Yeah,
lose
it's a good point.
what you've already
So you
you're getting.
can't question the leader and everything, because then they will ostracize you, and now you have lost that sense of community and that sense of belonging.
Whatever,
Mhm.
whatever
You
Have
happened
you?
to
no
hanging
longer
out at a
have that
bar with your friends?
safety
Damn.
net.
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't know if you know this, but we weren't hanging out in a bar, but me
We
and
were working.
Daniel, we met in a bar. He was working security for the band that was playing, and I was a bartender. So that's how we
I did
met.
not know
Yeah.
that. See, that's why you guys
Yeah.
aren't in cults. You
But
met
I
at a
think,
bar.
yeah. So I want to speak to that right there. What about the bar? If I'm a cult leader and I'm hunting somebody to approach, I'm gonna find that person at the bar that's by themselves
Yeah.
sitting at the bar off to one side,
That's
just
right.
watching the crowd, because they want someone to
Approach them.
approach. They want to be able to have that confidence to approach someone else as well. And if you make that first move to them,
It will build their confidence. Like, okay, I'm somebody worth
Yeah.
knowing.
the next time they go back to that bar, they're going to be looking for you. Even if you just sit and talk with them, they're going to be looking for you. So it's kind of that mindset that I think a bar would actually be a pretty good hunting ground to start off.
That also, and that their inhibitions are lower and everything if they're drinking. So
Well, of course, but I'm just talking about for that approach. So yeah, I think a bar actually makes sense if you know who you're looking for.
you could, I mean, even then, you could still turn it to like the lonely guy or girl at the coffee house, or, somewhere else in public that you see
Oh yeah,
them like watching other people, and you see
not
them kind of like wanting to go up and like
yeah.
connect,
Well,
basically.
and I agree. That's a good thing too. Like, but if you're at a Barnes and Noble and someone's sitting there reading a magazine and drinking one of those overpriced coffees, the kind of people watching is different, because you can kind of agree to go to a Barnes and Noble or a Books a Million and to have a quiet time by yourself.
Yeah.
If you go out to a bar, you're looking for that
You're looking for
stimulant.
social
Yeah, you're
interaction.
looking for that stimulus of whatever
Yeah,
whatever it gives you. So yeah, you're putting yourself in that environment to be approached or to have the opportunity to approach someone else, to have that
Yeah.
I
interaction
would
with a
agree with
person.
that. It's easy to, you would go to the place where
Yeah.
you're gonna, uh, do some research, I guess, at first, and then go, okay, these people are vulnerable to this in this way, so I'm gonna go where those people are.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh yeah,
this kind of goes back to like the way serial killers even track their victims.
I would.
They're going to an area that they know that they can find
Yeah,
the type of person they're looking
from
for.
us doing this show and doing all our research and talking about it throughout the years, I realized I would make a really good serial killer and or a cult leader. I
Charismatic
could do
fellas.
that.
I don't think, I don't think Andrew is here, but Andrew is convinced that I'm a closeted serial killer.
Yeah,
Like, everybody's a little bit scared of me, I think.
I mean, we have the ability to do stuff. Well, Heaven's Gate, for instance, that was you had Applewhite up front. He was the kind of the spokesman, but were they ever actually married? Him and the girl,
um,
his girlfriend, I know. Him and the woman. The woman was
I
really
want
the
to say they were actually married,
for
married.
we're gonna call it husband and wife just
Yeah.
for the conversation, but she was really the brains and the backbone of that cult. He was the mouthpiece and the charismatic up front man, you know, that kind of carried it. So he got all the attention, but she was the one that was kind of really pushed it and got it was building it
Okay.
up.
Well, that reminds me. Well, it was our last episode, wasn't
I don't know. Well, I
it?
don't know what
That
you're talking about.
we did the like how to hypothetically get away with it. Wasn't that our last
I
episode?
don't know. An episode or two ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, you could be like the front man and everything. I always make a joke and everything all the time that yes, Daniel is the one that wears the pants in our relationships, but I'm the one that controls the
That's
zipper.
funny. I like it. So I don't know.
Like,
I don't know about y'all,
I
but this is not a serious topic, but just thinking back, I can't think of any cult leaders that I've ever seen, that are had any popularity, that were straight up Southern folk, like, the sounds like the group of us are.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Like,
mean, Koresh might have counted in a little. I
but
mean,
I think he
since
just
they were
wound
just
up
like
in
eating
Texas.
grass
I don't
with
think
each other.
he didn't strike me as
Yeah,
particularly a southern guy. Like we all got bills and
I'll
shit
have to
down
see
here.
if
We ain't
I
got
can
time for all
find
that
like
stuff, man.
Exactly
I
right.
I need to find the guy that Daniel was mentioning earlier because I mean it actually isn't really far from us, but he and I think most people like don't take him seriously. That's why he is not well known. But I mean, he absolutely has got like his own little cult thing going on, and it's very very
But like
odd.
on Twitter or just town?
Like I always loved reading about him.
On Twitter or just around town where y'all are?
No,
Uh,
I think he's made like at least Alabama news, but just because he's so weird and like they thought it was like an interesting like human interest story. Like
Well, I
I can't remember
I
his
want to hear this
name or
story, but
anything,
I
but it was really
don't want to
funny.
take the show up to hear that.
well, no, I'll mention it a little bit since we brought it up. Um, the guy's name is Robin Bullock,
Okay.
Bullock, and he is like I don't know, a dollar, like a Timu version
Yeah,
of
I
Billy
got
Ray
it.
Cyrus.
Got a
Yeah.
ton of those where I'm at too, brother. I
Okay,
got a lot of them.
but he plays rock and roll music as he's preaching and everything, and he claims it's supposed to be a Christian church, right?
Yeah.
And but I mean, they're buying up all this land out. I don't know wherever it is. I'm not going to say that. I can't remember the exact town right now. But anyways, it's a husband and wife team. They're both named Robin.
Damn it.
Okay.
Son of a
It's
bitch.
Robin R and Robin D Bullock. Now she is the pastor of this church. The
Okay, so she's the front man
Yeah,
basically.
she's the preaching part.
Okay.
Robin, the guy, is the prophet. He's the one that has
The visions
Yeah, he's the one
probably.
that he gets ascended up into heaven every so often, so him and Jesus can talk and make plans, and then he gets sent back down to earth so he can
Okay.
put forth. And now here's the
Are
thing. No, wait, it gets better.
Can we go troll
The
these people
way
in
he
church?
gives his the way he gives his prophecies is singing with his guitar, with his electric guitar.
Sweet.
okay. But see, now I need to understand, like, when he ascends into heaven, like, is there a bright light associated with it and cows going up with him? Or,
I don't know.
because I'm
Um,
not entirely sure that that's Jesus.
But they're buying up a bunch of land and opening up all these churches and everything. It's pretty crazy.
yeah, I was also wondering, like, if you guys have ever heard, like, this is something I found out when I was looking up genocide literature on like history of how these ideologies sort of come about, and this does play into cults with how there is this sort of thing called like the paradox of genocidal ideologies, where on one hand there is the like we are the in group and there's an out group, and the out group on one hand, they have to be dehumanized by so seen as not human,
Yeah.
and but on the other hand, they also have to be seen somewhat as more than human because they have to be seen as solely responsible for everything that's wrong in the world. So that's what they call it a bit of a paradox, because on one hand, you have them where you have to say that these people are not people, but yet they are all responsible.
Talking about the followers?
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of these ideologies that some cult ideologies I see it especially in more hate-filled cults like the Klan and sort of these Aryan Brotherhood sort of things.
Right. Anybody not white is subhuman, but is also human enough to be responsible for all societal ills, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's not just. I mean, you look at there's Nation of Islam, Black Panther groups, stuff like that. I
Right.
mean, it's not just down to one race or the other, but I think that is
But
just a
sad.
hate fueled type cult where you dehumanize someone on a personal level, but you also, like you said, you elevate them in the negative ways to give them more.
But I mean, that's the paradox that he's talking about. They're either subhuman or they're somewhat more than human too, to be able to cause all of the problems that you're mad about.
Yeah.
You
You know what?
know?
This brings up an interesting question too, for me at least. Is that
Okay.
do you think do you think the definition of a cult has an inherent toxicity, negativity, negative impact on somebody, or are there groups that fall into all the, these categories and stuff that don't inherently harm anybody? Nobody's victimized, nobody's real. It's a
Yeah.
positive outcome, but also could actually sort of be considered cult-like in a lot of ways, even though nobody dies, nobody, burns a compound
Well,
to the ground or
Yeah,
whatever.
I could absolutely say that those types of groups, like the more benevolent cults, I would say, yeah, they absolutely could exist and probably do exist. But we never hear about them because they don't do anything
Or they're
wrong,
living
you
in
know?
like they're living amongst us and something we could probably identify that are hiding in plain sight that we just don't we don't lump into that group because there isn't a negative outcome of the whole thing. Like you could say Swifties,
Yeah,
for
well,
maybe. I
example. It's
mean,
like they're
right,
just
the,
music
the
followers.
definition of cult, the
well,
definition of cult could be very, very fluid
Yeah.
in this
I've
way.
got one that would tie right into that. That is a cult. Scientology has caused no one any harm other than financial.
Mm, I, I don't know that
I was
that's.
gonna
They
say
haven't.
there.
I thought
There's
there was
been
some
no
brainwashing,
murder.
sexual exploitation stuff going on in this
I
thing.
say there has been
Yeah,
like the sexual stuff and
but like you're saying,
everything
but he's talking
within
about
there.
like he's talking more. The way I took it was more like your traditional cults that end up with a mass suicide type
Or
event or something like
or
that.
like even with Manson, like do mass murder or
Yeah.
something like that.
So
Hmm,
Scientology,
interesting.
it may wind up going that direction at some
Yeah.
point. But
you
I
know,
think that would be the biggest named one, the most popular, well known one, I guess. The
Yeah,
most well known one that could be argued isn't necessarily a net negative to society.
Hmm,
you know,
that's an interesting point.
have you ever watched the show My Name Is Earl?
Yeah,
yeah,
Both Earl and his brother, like the actors, in real life are members of the Scientology.
yeah. There's Tom
yeah,
Cruise is the biggest one. There's a
yeah.
lot of them. What's that guy that played in Greece? John Travolta is one of.
Oh,
I
is
mean,
he?
yeah,
I didn't
there's a
know
bunch.
that one.
And Nancy,
I'm still trying to remember her name.
I'm looking it up now.
It's not Patricia Heaton, but she kind of looks like
You're
her.
talking about the one that the actress that got in a ton of trouble for sex trafficking or something like that.
No, that was
Uh,
that one from earlier.
the Nexium one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nexium was involved in human trafficking, and that one was like it was pronounced Nexium, but was like NX IVUM or something like Roman numerals almost.
well,
Is
you know,
they
it's
were involved in sex trafficking. But the one I'm thinking of, that she had that whole documentary series as she escaped Scientology.
Rita
Yeah.
Rimini.
That yeah,
the
from
girl.
the show with James what's his face, the big guy.
Yeah, um, yeah, and I remember sort of Nancy Cartwright, who plays Lisa Simpson, is also a member of
Mm-hmm.
the Scientology.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
You're not talking
Scientology
about
is
Katie
actually
Holmes, are
really
you,
big in
Laura?
Hollywood.
You're
Do
not
what?
talking about Katie Holmes, are you?
Katie Holmes was married to Tom Cruise, but no, she left it. But it was Leah Remini
Rimini's the actress that left and
and did that
started. She's
documentary
trying to
thing.
expose it
Oh,
all.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
The
okay.
little blonde from the Superman show from the CW was the one in the next film.
I know her face, but y'all, I suck with names. So every time we're trying to think of
Y'all
a
are
name for
trying to
somebody,
think of
I'm
Lisa
lost.
Remy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
her. But Scientology people are, like I said, we already said the big name ones, but there's a
yeah,
huge list of
yeah. I
them.
mean, I'm sure that
Nancy Cartwright, he mentioned
if
her
you were
already.
to again, if you were to take like the negative aspects, because yes, when you say cult, it always is associated with something negative.
Yeah. Think of it this way. Think
But
if
yes, I absolutely would believe that there are cults out there that are, not involved in any kind of criminal activity
yeah,
whatsoever.
Laura,
Well,
you probably have some experience with this. Think of something, anything that somebody is a fan of, or a large group is a fan of, that if you criticize, that all of them would surround you and destroy you with everything they've got.
Oh my God, I went after a. Well, I didn't go after a Swifty. I just merely disagreed with one once, and my notifications were a mess
Yeah.
for like 4 days.
You see what I mean?
I remember.
Like they don't even know her, and that sort of that crazy mentality comes out of the woodwork, and will just sort
Yeah,
of
it
Well,
was that
attack
knee
somebody.
jerk reaction to just protect the group, you
Yeah,
know?
I will. Yeah, I will also say there is like the other side of the argument where it's like the people that are very anti Swift, where like I remember like I've made like because obviously I don't like Taylor Swift myself, but I also said that I've also given like a compliment to her before, and a lot of people jumped on me before for that because
yeah,
all
the
I
other way. Yeah.
yeah, because because here's all I said. All I said was, "Hey, look, she donates a lot of money to charity. Like, you see how much she donates? I think she donates like 8% of her wealth to charity every year, which, I mean, that's a whole lot of money. And
Yeah,
all I
she
said
does a
was,
lot of good stuff. And I
and
mean, I'll even say that there are songs of hers that I don't hate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so it was so that's what I was talking about. Is like where you get the other side of the argument too, where you can just so much as just you can give someone like the most low compliment that you possibly could give and say, "Hey, you know what? You did this good thing for poor people. Congratulations, keep it up." And all of a sudden, you're saying this woman that's brainwashing all little girls.
yeah.
It's
Yeah. I
bro.
mean, like I said, I think it would be very, very easy today for any kind of person to become a cult leader because we are all so polarized that
Yeah,
it just seems like it doesn't matter if you're right or left or somewhere in the middle. If you compliment one side, the other side
Yeah.
is going to viciously attack you and say, "Oh, well, you're supporting everything that that side does."
Yeah.
well,
Like
yeah.
that's not
Like
how this works.
yeah, I remember like with you, Laura, in specific, like you've complimented Fetterman
Yeah,
and you've gotten people that like more Republican leaning people that have gone after you for just giving a compliment to what he says.
guys, I have been blocked by other conservatives for simply reading Stephen King books.
Oh my god, dude.
No, I have because they're like, he's a raging lefty. I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
understand this. Like, I'm able to separate the art from the artist, but these people get
Yeah.
like very, very angry with me and block me.
Yeah. It is still a good movie, so I don't know what you want me to do about that. You
I
know what
mean,
I mean?
I'm
Yeah,
more of the books. You can ask Daniel; he will not watch a whole. Well, actually, our Valentine's Day date is coming next week because they've actually made a new movie based on his short story, The Monkey. Which remind me to show y'all those pictures because that was one of the stories when we first got together that he read that actually bothered him. And then I went on Amazon and bought a monkey.
Oh no.
And yes, I did.
You
And
have a
then one
monkey?
day he got home from work and he got in the shower immediately and everything. So I went and unpacked the monkey and everything, left it sitting on the bed.
Oh.
And all I heard from downstairs when I was cooking dinner when he got
What
out of the
the
shower was,
fuck?
"That's not
Yeah,
funny."
right.
So I'm
totally.
going like that's my Valentine's Day treat and everything. He's taking me to see that new movie next week. This is the
I
monkey,
thought he
but
was gonna take you to the zoo so you could see actual monkeys.
yeah, no. For the most part, though, like he will not watch Stephen King movies with me because I'm the one who sits there and goes, "That's not how they did it in the book."
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh well, I mean, like, I mean, I've said this before, like, because Stephen King's um book, It,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a
and
big one that people point out.
yeah, and I like to just say, well, I mean, I've said it before, is that if someone like literally tried to make a page by page adaptation of that book, they would go to prison.
Well, I mean, I don't know who would necessarily go to prison because, I mean, the antagonist and the villain of the story is a supernatural
Yeah.
creature. But even the scene that everybody talks about in it is really not what it's made out to be. And like me and my friend Heather have wanted to do a spaces on this forever because she's a Stephen King freak too. I mean, if you read the book, it's not actually about what it's made out to be, you
Yeah,
know? And that I've been accused of like defending pedophilia and, covering for it. And I'm like, that guys, that's not the case in this. Like context matters, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I
So
mean, and I do get with you with when it comes to separating the art from the artist because like one of my favorite writers ever is S.E. Hinton, and I believe she's the one that made the Hunger Games.
I think so.
And I mean, she's one of them, and I'm pretty sure. I think I've heard she's more of a liberal or something, but I know from the I can't remember her name right at the top of my head, but she wrote the book The Outsiders. With
Oh, I did love that one in school. That was a
yeah,
good one.
yeah, and I found out like because that was one of my favorite books when I was in high school too, and I she was one of my favorite authors. She still is one of my favorite authors, and I remember I looked her up on Twitter, and God, do I regret that
is that is
because
Outsiders is
Yeah,
Pony Boy and the knife fight and all that? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
yeah, I mean it's basically like The Outsiders is basically like Happy Days,
Yeah.
but
With
like dark.
yeah, with a knife fight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking like it actually probably harken back a little more to Shakespeare and literature, but I haven't taken any kind of creative writing class in decades, probably.
Wait.
Daniel is sitting here playing solitaire now, so we've
All
gotten
right.
way
So
off topic.
I can maybe get us back on track with a question. So if you look at a group that follows something, it follows a purpose, follows a person, follows a idea, philosophy, whatever, what would you say? Even if it's with a lot of passion, somebody that's really devout to this thing, Christianity, for example, what things would stand out for you that would separate something that is benevolent and considered mentally and
Okay.
psychologically quote unquote normal to participate in versus a cult?
Yeah, I'll even use your example here, Christianity,
Yeah.
because we are Christian.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people do have this idea that Christianity like calls for us to kill certain people that are sinners. But the thing is, for a true Christian, everybody is a true sinner.
Right.
All of us, every single one of us. So, I mean, if you're going to kill one sinner for one sin, then, I mean, what's stopping anybody else from doing that to you,
Right.
too? This is not at all what Christianity teaches, what Jesus teaches.
I mean that's the
So,
Steve
a true
Anderson.
follower, like that would separate a cultist that is using Christianity.
Yeah.
They're going to say, that their basis for, let's say, hating gay people or
Yeah.
whatever, and saying that they should be killed. That person has now perverted Christianity for their own personal ideology, and that would make that person, if they have a large following and everything and have convinced a lot of people of this, that would make them a cult leader. That would make them a cult that is just simply using Christianity as a base.
Mm,
But
Yeah,
it is a perversion of actual
for sure.
Christianity.
yeah, that guy. Like I know the guy that you're talking about. That's Steven Anderson. That's the guy that he's this Christian pastor that he said that the government should make homosexuality illegal and then order the government should then seek out gay people and kill them
See,
because that's
that's absolutely absurd to me. Like, one, look, like, it's not our job to punish sin. That's not on us. That is what it's meant when it says, don't judge others. Like, judge others lest you be judged. Like, it's basically saying, I'm going to judge you. God is going to judge you by the same standard that he judges everybody. So if you're trying to judge somebody else's salvation or their life and everything the way that God would, you are like, you're taking on the role of God and everything, and that is what's forbidden.
Yeah,
Like, that's what we're told not to do.
I think that's the point right there too. It's when they are asking you to harm others or yourselves in their name.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're doing it because they have told you to, not
Mm-hmm.
because God has told you to, but they
Well,
said that God told them to tell you that that's what you
mm-hmm.
should
Oh,
do.
oh,
This is
sorry.
now a problem.
So Daniel, that would be
Yeah.
your distinction between what would be considered a large following with a passionate, dedication to that following, and a cult would be that sentence you just said, where it's like if the leader tells you to cause harm to other people. Is that sort of distinguish what you would consider a cult versus just a
I need
really
to make a
popular following of some kind?
I need to make a distinction here because, like, okay, yes, we're going to use homosexuality again as an
Okay.
example. It is considered a sin in Christianity, but God does not command anywhere in the Bible for followers of Him, like, especially the Christians, the followers of Jesus. We are not commanded to carry out
Hmm.
punishment for that is not our job. That is not our role. So, no, anybody that tells you that God says this is lying. Like, yes, if you are actively sinning, God says that's going to, lead to eternal death. Like, but that's his judgment, not ours. We are
yeah.
not supposed to be the ones to carry that out here on earth.
I
Yeah.
remember it was also funny because just going into, they sort of have to have this whole this false history about how persecuted gay people really were in America for however long. And what's funny is like they'll point out sodomy laws or whatever and use that and say, look, our government has embraced this sort of thing with Christianity before. And I mean, I like to point out that if you go to the colonial times, like we only have records of that ever being enforced like 10 times. And it's literally over hundreds of years.
Yeah,
It,
but you can't say on this point, like, you can't say that the homosexual people have not been persecuted in the U.S. and
yeah.
pretty severely just because in certain contexts of any kind of law like that was only carried out a handful of times. No, they absolutely were very persecuted in the U.S.
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of that specific law, that's
Yeah,
different. Like, but yeah, of course, when it comes to socially, that's a different thing. So, I mean, like, there can be not a law against something or for something, and people still be persecuted. Like that happens all the time because social people get like I remember, for example, I tell people about how like after World War II, for a time being, German Americans were very much hated by a large segment of the American population. They were all called Nazis. Even many German Americans that had been born in America and their only crime was that their mother or father was from Germany.
look at the
And
Japanese internment camps too.
yeah, and and basically that was all like so. And many German Americans had to lose their like they either had to stop talking because they had a thick German accent, or
Right,
or they had to take a linguist. They sent them to took linguist classes so they could learn how to.
lose their accent. Yeah,
Yeah, so that happened for a time being where and there was no law specifically saying, "Oh, go out and basically imprison the German Americans." There wasn't anything for that, but there can be like social stigma that's
oh yeah.
like that.
Yeah, persecution happens no matter what. I mean, every single culture, every single race, every single ethnicity,
Yeah,
everybody has persecuted everybody on earth because, I'm sorry, that's human nature.
yeah,
You're
human
going to,
tribalistic.
people that are considered other are going to be ostracized by some people. Like, it just, I'm not saying it's right, but it happens. It's not uncommon. That's, again, human nature.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons that these cult leaders can get their people to do these horrible things
Because
too,
they other
is
people.
because it's us against them mentality, and you can turn them into, like you said, that you feed that human nature as far as being, well, we're right, so we have the authority to do this because this is what we
Yeah.
believe, and therefore you're wrong and you're less than us.
And you even see that now playing out in politics today. Like
It,
left versus right. Both sides are saying, we're right, you're wrong, you're the
well,
bad guy,
well, I mean, and the thing is like, I mean, this is sort of instinctual. Like, we don't really even think about it in many cases, like this us in group versus out group. I mean, it's not even something exclusive to humans. We see the same thing in like chimpanzees and other things.
Yeah.
Like, they, like, it's
We also
completely
share like 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. So they're a
so.
lot more similar to us than we realize.
Well, especially some of our family members when they forget to shave.
Hey,
Yeah,
I don't know. Mine doesn't look like a chimp. He looks like a Viking. Get it right.
yeah,
You're the one that coined that in the first place.
I know, and that was so great. Especially that you got the cookie jar with the Viking Santa. I so love
Um,
that.
I'm looking at the cookie jar right now up on top of the pantry, but yeah.
Yeah, I so love that I have that influence. Maybe I can be a cult leader then if I can influence that.
Well, I don't know. Like Daniel said, I guess since he would be like the Viking Santa and everything, we could have like a whole cult for Viking Santa. That would be fun.
Oh yeah, Santa, Viking Santa and his Viking elves.
Look, you could implement like your lottery thing because you get your followers and everything to like give you money and everything. You could make your dream happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of y'all know about his dream, but some of y'all don't. So you need to tell them your dream.
So what
He's
I
looking
want
at
to
the clock.
do is, if I ever become a billionaire or a cult leader with enough power, is I want to employ a bunch of little people, midgets, and just give them a nice place to live and not charge them anything for it.
I say
Rent
we
free.
set them up, we take care of them, well, like cradle to grave.
Yeah, because this is a group of people that gets overlooked. And they don't, I mean, it's a minority group that doesn't get a lot of attention. So I want to reach out to them or reach down to them and help them out and give them and give them a good place to be. And like I said, they won't have to work. They won't have, well, they'll have to work a little farm, but they won't have to, they'll get a small paycheck, but they will live rent free on our property.
I say again, they're set up for life. I mean, they want for nothing.
Generational life if
Yeah.
they so choose. The only thing,
And that, well, here, hang on. This is the thing. If they choose, this is completely like voluntary, consensual.
I mean, I'm not going to force them, of course. But what they have to deal with is ever so often I'm going to come over the hill as a giant and I'm going to wreak havoc on their little village, and I want them to run away in fear, and then I go away.
And we will have it complete with like mini goats and mini cows and like the mini pigs.
For sure.
What?
But they have to dress like the little villagers and run away from me at least once a week.
What did I walk into? What did I miss? I fell off the call and I walked back in and he's talking.
That's like his, like, if we ever like win like the Mega Millions lottery or something.
I'll tell you right now, the world would be a much funner place if I was Mr. Beast instead of
buddy.
I tell you what.
But I swear, like that's
Y'all
his
disagree on
kryptonite.
something? Well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna strap both of you into NASCAR and we'll see who wins. Hell
right.
yes.
No.
Well,
All I want to say,
they get the go kart, not the NASCAR cars.
Well, they could do.
it's
We could do. There had to be
bowling.
one in the scoreboard doing the brake and the gas, and the other one sitting on the seat driving. So it would work.
I
Well,
yeah, I
I
remember.
married this man on
Ugh.
purpose.
I remember that I remember I told you this when in our interview about this whole story when it comes to Mega Millions or whatever, where this Florida guy, he like an interviewer was interviewing people that were buying lottery tickets, and they just went up to this guy and they said, "What would you do if you won all these millions of dollars?" And the guy just said point blank to the camera, "Cocaine and
Yeah,
hookers." And
Yeah.
I'm starting a cult.
and but and
See,
I
okay.
remember, yeah,
My
I
thing
was just,
is I'm gonna end up being like Ross when, they play the lottery and Friends. They all like chipped in and everything, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put it in like a very like low yield bond and
Yeah.
everything." Like, yeah, nobody would ever know that I win the lottery. There was a guy recently, like just a year or two ago, maybe three. I don't know. I don't know time. When I say like it happened the other day, it could
I
be
don't know
any
time.
time between like last month and my birth. But yeah, this dude showed up to collect his lottery winnings, like full on in the Scream like Ghostface outfit, like with the gloves and everything, because he didn't want anybody to know even what race he
Yeah, yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. That's the old
Like, I
adage where they
love that
say
guy. I'm like, that's
nobody's going to be able to
genius.
tell for certain if who won that lottery or if I won the lottery, but there will be signs.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, I'll take care of like our family's houses and everything. Like our family will be very, very well set up for life,
Lord,
basically.
I'd like. Oh,
But
go
I
ahead.
mean, for the most part, like, yeah, y'all are gonna see me with like all of the animals, and my house is gonna look like a
Yeah,
jungle.
you're gonna have a monkey.
Oh, I would have a monkey. My dad had a monkey when he was
That's the
growing up.
damn. That's the craziest sentence I've ever heard. My dad had a monkey when I was
and
growing up.
Yeah, like Marcel, the little
Yeah, Marcel.
capuchin
Yeah, yeah.
monkey. My dad had one.
Sweet.
I mean, is that what you call your brother?
No, even though like I did always make fun of it. Did I ever tell you how I tortured my brother?
Oh yeah, you did tell me about that.
Yeah, my brother used to be smaller. He's my little brother, but he's like 6'2" and everything now, so it's ridiculous. But when we were kids, I was bigger than he was. So there were times like when I just got it in my head that I was going to torture him. So I would just like pin him down on the ground and I would tap a spoon on his forehead until he cried.
Uh,
God dang.
um, I mean, in case you're wondering why Viking Santa has a gray beard and gray hair, please,
Yeah,
he,
it's
he
all me.
had he had short brown hair. I mean, short black hair before he met Laura. So
I can show y'all the pictures of our wedding day and everything, and then show you a picture of him today, and it's like literally night and day. It's black and white.
So I have a.
yeah,
I will ask you this. I'd love to get everybody's intake on this. If you did have all the money, if you did win whatever amount of, in unlimited money or whatever, and you started a cult, what would your cult be?
Ooh, this is a good one. Um, oh, that's a good question. I don't know. So many things are running through my brain
Would it
right
be a
now.
friends cult, or would everybody? Would you start a? Everybody has to the day. Would you rename the
No, I
days
don't.
the one that starts the work week or something?
No, I mean, as much as I love Friends, like I don't think I would do anything pop culture. Like I do think that I would want to do something that is beneficial to
Uh
society,
huh.
but I just don't know what. I
But
mean,
then again, is that a
you know
cult?
my
If
big,
it benefits society,
but that's what I'm saying. Like it technically could be considered a cult, even though just
it,
the way when we think of a cult, we think of the negative
yeah.
connotation
yeah.
with it.
I mean, well, you have to think about it this way: you wouldn't be a malignant narcissist cult leader; you'd be a benevolent narcissist cult leader.
Well, I mean, I'm not even a narcissist because the first thing that comes to mind is abortion. So that's me thinking about other human beings,
Well, yeah,
and
but I mean,
saving them and everything. So that's not narcissism.
well, I know. I mean, I was always wondering, like, because I remember you said malignant narcissism, and I was thinking in my head, what would benevolent narcissism look like?
Okay, that's actually a good question
Yeah.
too.
So
I mean, it would still have to be something beneficial to me specifically, like for my own personal gain, but that doesn't harm anybody else. Like that does not harm or kill another human being.
I think
Um,
I
So
think
would
it would be
I don't
important to
know. I mean,
define
that's
harm too. Like, does that count financially, like Daniel said, or does that?
yeah. I mean, I would think harm encompasses like a lot of things that something that basically negatively affects another living human.
Hmm.
yeah,
Like
I don't think somebody with that much power can benefit themselves and not be negative against
I
somebody
that's
else.
gotta
that's what
agree
I'm
with that.
thinking too. Like
I gotta agree with that.
I
Yeah.
can't come up with anything. Like I don't.
I mean, would benevolent narcissism be like the whole example of like uh, there's a common thing about the airplane and like the airplane is spinning out of control or something's bad and you need to get oxygen, and you as a parent or whatever, you're commanded first to put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that way you have enough oxygen to put on the mask for your kid.
Yeah, I
um
mean that to me has always been kind of logical, but as a mother, like my first instinct is not that.
Well, yeah, but that's the reason why they say, like, would that be an example of benevolent narcissism? Because you're thinking about yourself first, so that way you can be of a help to other people later.
Yeah, I think that would kind of qualify because it's also the kind of metaphor that I've seen too about self-care. Like you have to make sure your glass is filled, otherwise you cannot fill anybody else's glass.
Yeah. Well, I remember in the Bible it says, love others like you would love yourself, and I mean, people forget that part, like the love yourself part. Like, it's very hard to love other people if you hate yourself.
That's very true, and I mean, I think a lot of my show and everything is kind of a reflection of that because I don't think that the people that I normally talk about on the show like themselves very much,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
either they like themselves entirely too much.
I think you can make the argument that benevolent narcissism, uh, the Pope, but
Mm.
what you would get and you can look at Joel Osteen, those kinds of things too. I mean, any kind of character along those lines. But I would think that the problem with it is the narcissism will overtake the benevolent
Yeah,
part
I was
in
about to
the
say
end.
Joel Osteen as an example is terrible because he
Well,
is
I'm
not
just trying to think of
benevolent.
somebody
Yeah,
who's got that.
that power over
Who's not doing
others.
any obvious harm, what we would consider upfront harm.
Right.
His church does. Yes, they take in tons of money. He's a billionaire, but they give out
A
tons of
lot of
money as
money
well.
too.
So, but it's benefiting himself
At the same
at the
time
same
that they're
time.
helping
And the
others.
Pope is very good at being supposed to be meek and put the church and everything first, but he's a living embodiment of the church. So therefore, that's the narcissism side coming in on because he knows it and he claims it. That's just part of the
Yeah,
deal.
Uh,
And
there's a
I'm doing the religious lead because of the benevolency part. That's why I'm kind of leaning that way.
yeah.
But to give a
Is
real answer, I would kind of lean those directions. Maybe I'd have to think about it more because I can talk myself
I
out
said
of it.
that is a really good
Because I
question.
can talk
So
myself out of it just like I'm talking myself into it. But that's my first answer would be maybe a pope or someone along those lines.
is
yeah. What
benevolent
I was
narcissism a impossible contradiction? Is it impossible for that to exist because naturally
I think,
narcissism is a negative, so to speak,
yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. I think
yeah,
it may begin that way, but it will always end with that narcissism will
overtake
yeah.
overtake
the
the benevolent side of
it
it.
will either,
yeah,
like, I get it where you're saying. I think it'll either go two ways. Either the narcissist, like you're saying, the narcissism will take over, or eventually the benevolence will take over and they'll stop thinking of themselves first. So one of the two are going to have to go.
Yeah, they can't coexist for long.
yeah. I mean, yeah, one of them will overtake the other one, and and this may sound very, very pessimistic, but I think it's more realistic of me to say. But the narcissism, I think, for human nature will always be the overwhelming majority winner there.
Especially when you start adding power into it. The
Yeah.
more power you have, the more
Oh,
likely it's
yeah.
going to turn.
Yeah,
And
that also
that, I
goes.
mean, we see that play out in these cults and everything that we're going to be talking about next week and in the coming weeks, because we don't know even how many episodes we're going to do. It depends on the cult and how long we can talk about them.
69 episodes.
I don't know that there have been. I mean, we're going to stick with mainly the prominent ones, I think. So a handful of episodes at least.
I do want. There will be at least one episode where we'll hit on some of the smaller ones, but we
Yeah,
won't spend 2 hours on
one
each
of
one.
them. Yeah, we
But
can do a episode on multiple
they are
of
some
those.
smaller ones that are extremely violent and
Yeah.
dangerous and kind of twisted, and some are just downright funny because they're so odd. But
Well,
we're definitely going to be looking into those, and we'll do a show kind of encompassing a bunch of those too.
Yeah,
well,
we've got like I said, part 2 I think is going to be on the active one in the US right now, because that is the transgender slash Antifa cult that's involved in serial murder right now. I mean, FBI is investigating, and this is ongoing as we speak now.
um,
But
well,
yeah, there's even one, like, we'll break it up because there's a cult about cats. Like, there's a cat cult out there that's ridiculous. So that'll just be a fun one. Yeah.
yeah. I was wondering, is one of your episodes going to be about the cult of people that are stalking you, Laura? Will that be an episode?
I don't think they qualify as a cult, but when I eventually do an episode on stalkers and everything, like, I may mention them.
All right, that's good. Because they could easily become a cult. They just need someone that actually has a bit of a brain in order to lead them. But
Well, I think that the one that could qualify for that is that dumbfuck detector.
uh,
Possibly that person could be the forerunner for the leader, but
eh,
Does dumbfuck
they're
detector
extremely
stalk you?
organized.
Let's say they're disorganized. So
They're very, very disorganized.
yeah,
But yeah, one of them is probably going to be arrested very, very soon.
They're
great.
straight fucking stalking you for real?
They are doxing
Oh
me. They
God,
are threatening to dox my daughter's school. She's
that's
15 years
fucking
old.
crazy. That's fucking crazy.
And,
Yeah, it's
and over
been
nothing.
like, if you go to my timeline, there was one even today actively calling for my murder.
Come on, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
for nothing. Like literally just giving an opinion on abortion and transgenderism, and that's it.
Like, I don't care if they disagree with me all day long. Let's just do it like adults. I mean, me and the face
Yeah.
here, like, we vehemently disagree on
Hmm.
abortion.
I
But
mean,
we have actually become friends because we realize, hey, there's another person on the other side of this screen, and
Right.
well, I
let's
mean,
at least hear one another out. We don't have to agree with each
Right.
other,
Right.
but
And there's
I mean,
absolutely nothing that justifies doxing a kid's school. Are you fucking kidding me? Like,
they have named 2 schools that they think that she attends that we've had to put on alert.
why? For what?
Because, I mean, it's ridiculous. All because I have very strong feelings about these 2 issues, and I
Yeah.
mean,
and
it's not rational behavior at all. So
even with me and you, Laura, we've had our disagreements on things, and even then, like, yeah, we just say, all right, we disagree, and we move on.
yeah,
It's like never in once do I ever think, oh, me and Laura disagree on this. Oh, I'm gonna dox her and try to ruin her life. I'm like, what the hell? Like that doesn't.
these people are not even trying to, like, ruin my life, like, career wise or anything. They're not going after the media group that I work for, that I actually work for. They are actually trying to get me hurt or killed.
Yeah. See that, and, hey, that sounds cult-like to me.
I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
they probably would very well qualify here soon,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
If they
But
throw
yeah,
it,
I mean, I actually have a police report out. I'm going to check back in on that Tuesday when the courts open up, and one of them is probably actually about to be arrested because she is publicly saying, "If you want her information, I'll give it to you."
yikes. Yikes.
Yeah, it's been absolutely ridiculous and stressful, and
And it's
it,
heck,
one thing to like help somebody find somebody that's committed a crime or that has like, gotten away with something and they're on the run, they're a fugitive or whatever. But it's
yeah.
another for to put somebody in harm's way that's never done anything wrong, that's never harmed anybody, that's never committed a crime, that's just like tweeting, you know,
So
damn.
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, all of this is just because I disagree with them on these two main issues, and like one of them, the main girl I'm not going to name and everything, is saying she told me to abort my child. Like, for I want to ask you, since you disagree with me
Uh-huh.
big time on
Uh-huh.
abortion. Does that ever be? She says that I told her her son should have been aborted because he identifies as a woman today. Does that sound like something I would ever
No,
say to somebody?
no. You never would tell anybody to abort ever.
Absolutely not. Like, I don't even like it when her life is in danger, but at least I understand the necessity of that.
Right. Right.
Like, that is like the only circumstance I would ever say, okay, this sucks, but I get it.
Yeah, I don't you
But
telling somebody to
no, like,
abort
just
somebody
because her
because they
son identifies as a woman now, like, no, I'm not going to tell her that she should have aborted that kid because absolutely not.
right. No.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of like how people would say that um, the whole thing about saying that they want to find out if like homosexuality is genetic in the womb or something, and people
Yeah.
would say that hardcore Christians like say would say that if I knew that my child was gay, like in the womb, we would have gotten an abortion. And I'm
Like,
like,
this woman was actually asking other Christians, like, oh, well, what if you knew the child was going to be gay? Like, look, you don't get to ask that question because you are the one saying that it would still be that woman's right to abort her child for that reason.
yeah,
Like, no, you don't get to try to turn this around on us because we're going to say no. You're the one saying that she still has that right, and you will fight for her right to
Mhm.
do that, whether her child is gay, whether her child is trans, whether that child is like black or white or whatever other race. You are going to say, yes, it's her right to abort for that reason specifically. So no, like it was absolutely absurd of her to be asking that question of a Christian woman. Like,
yeah. And especially like one like and it's not like you're the whole fundamentalist like that's saying calling for the government to kill the gays. Like you're much more um laid back on that. So you're the worst kind of person to ask that to.
I am very live and let live. Like, as long as what you were doing, my motto in life is do whatever floats your boat, as long as it doesn't sink mine or anyone else's. Like, as
Yeah.
long as you are not harming or killing another human being, I really don't actually care what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I want the government to adhere to that too.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, and that's what I think is the whole thing where you get these. I think a lot of times cults are very reactionary, where they are reacting to an element of the culture. I think that's
Right.
sort of what Jim Jones in some ways was doing because you have this one side of the very racist aisle that was, using Christianity as a means of saying that black people aren't humans and they're going to destroy
Exactly. Yeah.
society. And then, as a reaction to that, Jim Jones is able to just come in and say, "Oh, look, I have this benevolent thing, and just join me." And he
Yeah.
starts his
I
own.
have another side of this, so y'all just follow me. Yeah, I mean, these people, they are absolutely predatory.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Predatory is, I think, earlier I was saying what would distinguish a cult leader from, I don't know, a follower of like a leader of a following that isn't necessarily harmful. I think being predatory would be one of those stand out.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
key to it. Yeah. Like you are absolutely using other people for your own gain and you know you're doing it.
Yeah, I think you could say that's a bit of a difference when it comes to groupies because these celebrities are often very just trying to get to town, and you have these groupies that are just standing out there. Now, to be fair, you could make the argument that sometimes they absolutely do call for it. And you're going to be right on some occasions, but sometimes, they don't have to say or do anything. The groupies just come to them. So you could say it could be predatory either way. So, hey, it's reciprocal predatoriness.
Yeah, for at least the groupie versus like, who they're targeting. I think that's very like the face was saying earlier, like very symbiotic, very mutualistic. They're using each other in that kind of
Right.
scenario. And they
Yeah,
know they're using one another. But to me that doesn't really fall under like
cult.
cult for what we're talking about.
No,
It
that's
doesn't
just human
hurt you at all.
nature. That's just human nature because all you're doing is, ooh, look what I did. It's something to brag about in the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes to the other side of it as being the giver, as opposed to the receiver. It's the same thing. It's like you're still getting something out of it. So, like you're saying, there's no cult aspect to
The
that at
groupie
all.
dynamic,
At all.
yeah.
That's just human debauchery.
Yeah.
That's just nature right there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The whole groupie dynamic doesn't fall under.
Now, when you look at a cult and it's usually led by men, it seems like it always leads to sex.
Yeah, I mean,
And you
any
can,
kind of like Applewhite, Jim Jones, Manson, David
I think all
Koresh,
those were
like
sex,
all of
not
these.
centric, but had some
Yeah,
weird
I mean,
shit going
they
on.
all abuse female their female followers, like
mm,
even as far as children.
yeah, it always seems to go to that just about every time it goes down that
Yeah.
road when it comes to that because I think it's more of a power thing, too.
Well, rape
But
always is more about power than it is about sex.
so when you
So,
got the brainwashing that goes along with the cults, you get these women who think that that they're chosen, that they're special
mhm.
by this. So it's just another form of, and like I said, the sex normally lasts. I mean, it doesn't start until later on into the
The
following.
brainwashing has to follow first because they have to conquer the mind before they can conquer the body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
Yeah,
this is. This is conquering for at least the men
Yeah,
leaders.
it's control,
Yeah.
power.
I will
Like
say,
I've got power over your entire mind now. Now I'm going to take your body.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that sounds a lot like that sounds typical of an abusive relationship in general. And that's sort of how, like, I've actually looked up, like, what's the differences between male and female abusers, like female on male and male on female abusers. And typically speaking, although there are, of course, exceptions, that, like, male, like, abusers, they tend to lead with their strength and, like, they inflict mental damage through their physicality.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, I've lived through this, so I can attest to this.
yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I don't want to say that's every person's experience. It could, I know,
Yeah,
except,
definitely not. I mean, I get what
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah, and so for men, typically they do mental damage through their physicality, whereas with female on male abusers, it tends to be where they focus on the mentality first to get to the man to the state where they won't fight back, and then they go to
Women are inherently more emotional than men are. So, yes, we're going to go after that. That's why you see these. There was a teacher just recently in the news where she had actually been impregnated by her 15-year-old student. And he has come out now as an adult saying, she doesn't need to be sentenced. Like, she needs to be released. I came on to her. Okay, but she was still the
Yeah.
adult in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if okay, my our daughter is 15 years old. If one of her male friends were to come on to me or something, I'm going to immediately shut this shit down and tell every parent involved, like, Like, okay, this is, this is not okay. Because I'm the adult in the situation. I'm the one who knows better. Like, you're
Yeah,
15, you're hormonal. Like, I get it. That, that's fine. The lust and everything, like, that's just gonna happen because you're a teenage boy. Like,
yeah,
that just happens. But you don't have to prey on that. You
yeah,
do not have to encourage it.
yeah. What people don't think about is like kids. They're not very long-term thinkers. They're
Oh,
not
God.
stupid. They're not stupid, but they're also not like kids. Like when they're 14 or 15 years old, they're not thinking, "How's 35-year-old me going to think about this?"
Right.
They're not like
I'm okay. I can say this. I'll be 38 in July, and I'm sitting here thinking the life I have right now is so much better, but so much different than what I saw for myself at 15, 16 years old.
yeah, and that's sort of the thing is like when kids are that age, they're not thinking like long term, like how is 30 or 40-year-old them going to feel about what they're doing now. They're
Yeah.
thinking about like what's immediately pleasurable to me at this moment. And you have a kid, so you know this well that sometimes what your kid wants, yeah, you really shouldn't be giving them that. Like they'll say, like I want to eat a whole gallon of ice cream, and
Yeah.
you say, well, no, you're going to be sick if you do that. Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be able, and I think that's a lot of problem too with parents, especially these days. They
Mhm.
don't want their kids to be mad at them or upset with them or anything. So they stop parenting and they start trying to be a friend. I am the only mother that my daughter is ever going to have. Daniel is the only father she's ever going to have. She's going to have all the friends she could ever want.
Mhm.
But we are her parents. We are the parents that she's got, and this is what it is. So we have to actually be the parents, and we have to be able to say no, even when it pisses her off.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's parenthood.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure and then this sort of does go with the cults, like because the cult leaders also tend to like impulsive people, like people that make decisions like on a split like second, because those people can be, you can get them to the cult and you can make it look larger for a while, and you can attract more people. So even
Well,
like
that
they
or
said,
an impulsive
yeah,
person is way more easy to manipulate.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good point.
Like,
exactly.
you're going to be able to present them something that sounds good to them in the short
That's
term.
that's why most cult leaders are men and most followers are women, because women's going to follow with their emotions and men
Yeah.
are more logical.
Yeah, I mean, you actually see this play out. The men are the male cult leaders and everything are very, very strategic.
Mm-hmm.
The women, and we are going to cover some women who are in charge of cults and everything. The women, at least one of them that I know of, overcompensates with shows of aggression and shows of strength and everything, but she actually has other men carry that out.
Yeah.
But she has emotionally manipulated those men into feeling like they are her chosen
Mm-hmm.
ones.
Well, the men leaders too. You was talking about being more of a physical threat. They normally take control of the bodies of their men followers as well.
Yeah,
A lot of them, you're talking about, they have to have a circumcision. In some cases, they had to be castrated. You know,
Or they sometimes will actually take the wife right in front of
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
the man.
They'll claim their wives or their
Yeah.
daughters. In some cases, they will tell them if there's punishment to be dealt out. It normally goes against the men followers first.
yeah,
Um, so when
And
it comes,
against people that they love.
yeah, so there's definitely, as a man, as a male cult leader, it is physically. There's emotional and psychological abuse and manipulation, but there's a lot of more physical as well.
Yeah.
Whereas the women cult leaders, it starts off more of a emotional and psychological manipulation, and yes, there is physical manipulation and punishment, but like you said, they normally use men to carry that out.
And the men that they use to carry that out, they establish that emotional connection first and reinforce it with physical. So that means
Mm.
that they are usually sleeping with their quote unquote enforcers.
So
to make them like have that, to build that connection and say, you know, hey, if you keep doing all these things for me and everything, this is how I show my love and my
Yeah,
gratitude to you.
you'll be rewarded.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even her doing the sleeping around. Like she'll get some of the other female members of
Well,
the cult and gift them.
yeah, but I'd say a lot of times with the female leader, cult leader, it's not her.
Yeah.
She uses subordinates and
Yeah.
followers to do that as well.
And she's actually emotionally manipulated those females, those women, those girls into thinking that they're doing something good.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be like when I see a lot of female leaders of these cults, they tend to be older women, and sort of what they lean on to get younger women, because they say, "Look, I'm the elder here. I know what's best for you as a younger one." Because women do tend to want. I mean, people generally, but women even more so. They have a reverence for age, and they want to go to their elderly women for guidance. And
I
the
say we, as speaking as a woman, yeah, I mean, I would say that we do look to older women and everything, like especially for advice.
yeah,
That's in general. It's all across the entire world.
Elders are
We're
kind of
taught
revered.
to listen to and follow and respect our elders. To nowadays and age, it's not near as popular as it used to be, but still, that's kind of a across the board.
Well, especially in Western culture, like in America and places like that, like you've seen almost a demasculization of men. So younger men are not looking to their elders for
Right.
advice, for guidance, or anything like that, because they're thinking, okay, well, you're a dude. Like, what do you know?
Right.
yeah.
Actually, could see in the future now, see more prominent cults come out and everything that have a female leader because of that, because people are looking for nurturing, they're looking for comfort, they're looking for support, they're looking for that emotional guidance.
I'll tell you what, the daggum leftist crybaby snowflakes is even ruining cults. My God.
God dang it.
They have to do, they're going to do DEI cult leaders. I'm like, can we not have one thing?
Yeah, come on, man.
I'm about to say, I think basically all of y'all are like white men, straight white
Yep.
men.
Yeah.
So, like
Yeah.
y'all are the most evil people in existence right now. Why am I even having you on my show? Like y'all should be bowing down to me.
To be fair, on the victim hierarchy, you're still higher than, like, you're right under us. So, like, you're still up there. You're like the second rung. So
Yeah.
you're not that far down. You still out to party
only in
women.
pay. Only in pay. You know that. As far as cults, though, I mean, next week when we start over, we're basically just going to redo the show.
Well, we'll kind of rehash the high points,
and then we'll go into the second hour. We'll go into one
the
of
current
the
one.
current show. Current.
I don't know that we'll have that many updates since it is still ongoing and authorities are still, investigating and searching for these people. So it may actually be like we'll start off with the one show or the one cult, and then we'll just do a kind of a deep dive into a second one.
Yeah, and that'll be next, not 2 weeks, but immediate Saturday.
We're going to every Saturday for this series
from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah.
And we'll pick back up on the Cult Show. But we're going to end this live or this stream because we're a little over 2 hours now. Now, if you want to re-up a new one and keep talking about whatever you want to talk about, it's fine.
Yeah.
But we need to keep around 2 hours for the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the cults go, we're like I said, we're starting this series, and it could be a few weeks. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I want to look at a real serious, in-depth looks on them in the upcoming shows.
Yeah, definitely deep dives coming up into specific ones.
Yeah. So this was kind of a good opener, but like I said, we'll revisit a lot of this.
The discussion actually brought up some good points we could bring up in other episodes of stuff too. So
yeah, next week the first hour will be basically going back over this show, and then the second hour we'll start on the current
active
cult that's going on right now, and hopefully we'll have some more breaking news and updates about what's going on with it.
Yeah, because that one again, multiple people have been killed because of this cult right now.
6 so far.
Yeah, they are now involved in serial murder.
What?
So yeah, hopefully by next week, I've been Andy has been tracking them. I'll link my Twitter article about him or Twitchy article about him because I link a lot of his tweets and everything, so you can follow along with him. And we are actively tracking this right now.
Yeah, Andy easy to find. Andy NGO.
Mr. Andy NGO.
And he's on X, of course. He's got a YouTube channel with the same name. Pretty interesting stuff on this overall, but on this specific case we're about to talk about, he's got a lot of that covered. We'll be going off of his reporting very, very heavily on next week's show.
Yeah, he's been covering this extensively, so all updates and everything, and we'll obviously give him the credit for it, but
yeah. So anyways, it was a good icebreaker to starting the cults, and we'll appreciate y'all that actually joined us. And this is recording, so there will be availability to go back and listen to it later.
Yeah, we'll get with our producers to put it on anywhere you get a podcast.
So please share it with your friends and family and even people you don't like. I don't care. But spread the word, and let's get us out there. If you want to tell them where they can find you at.
Yeah, I'm Bumpstock Barbie here on X. It's really only family and friends that have me on Facebook and Instagram, but I also write for Twitchy, which again, I have now a new article about the newest cult and everything, so I can link that later.
That's Twitchy on X and Twitchy.com.
And right? my Twitchy articles are all linked in my bio, so you can go read through every single thing I've written for Twitchy.
Yeah, we're both here on klrnradio.com. Tonight we weren't, but the recording should be added to it later. On Front Porch Forensics, and we are on X. It is
FP_forensics.
FP_forensics on X. We don't really have we have a YouTube channel and
we're building other social media. So.
We have a YouTube channel and a TikTok, but we're not active on that stuff yet. But eventually, we went ahead and started them so nobody else would get the name. And then I'm just Bumpstock Ken on X. That's really all I do, and I don't even do that much anymore. So,
but yeah, Face, it was actually good to actually speak to you this time, so I get to put a voice with a screen and everything.
Absolutely.
So,
another thing, spread the word to everybody that we can be found on our Front Porch Forensics on Spotify and
everywhere you get podcasts.
Anywhere you get podcasts, you can look us up there and find us, and all our shows are archived, and you can go back and listen and share and click, and let's help this thing grow.
I say it's the easiest way you can help out our little family.
I like it.
So, all right, good night, y'all.
And thanks for having me.